All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in. This is our third call. I really wish and hope that we continue with this momentum and we keep picking up different topics. I've received some very good questions. A list of good about 15, 20 questions over the last 2 weeks for people who who have different uh, maybe information or they want to know more about how their training is going on. So we're going to cover up as we progress during these calls. So today we're going to pick up, the nuisances of indoor ride. In today's call, we're going to talk about what the importance of an indoor ride are, what's the function. A lot of people still are not very clear on what does FTP mean. So we're going to cover up on what exactly is FTP, the relation between an FTP and how your race can, be and your training can be transformed based on your FTP. We'll talk about cadence. We'll try to cover up a few pointers in cadence. Uh, and of course, there are a lot of challenges people face while they do their indoor rides. So I'm going to pick these topics up. But again, it is also a conversation in terms of for you guys to start dropping in your questions. If there's anything, feel free to raise your hand and we can pick up the pointer as well. So starting with the importance of indoor rides. A lot of people in this call right now have been training with us for over about more than 6 months and longer as well, and they've been very active on the saddle. So they would understand what I'm coming to and where I'm coming from. So indoor ride will look at a lot of components in terms of you doing the ride, where we talk about a lot of muscle groups are engaged when you're riding. Of course, when you're riding, either you're in an aero position or you're in an upright on an endurance bike. Your core is engaged in it, so there's a good core work which happens on this on the ride, uh, because all your weight is holding on to the bike. So there's a lot of upper body work required. We have your back, a nice posture, which gives a lot of which put a lot of work on your back. Your glutes always fired up, making sure that you're building up that power. Your hamstrings to really draw that extra power when you're pulling up the pedal. Your quads when you're really pushing through the uphills and you're really trying to drive some good strong sprints out. And of course, your whole lower limbs in terms of your ankle, your calves. So if you look at it, it's a complete full body workout, which really, challenges the whole discipline of a triathlon, where cycling being roughly about 70% of your triathlon time. So very important sport. We tend to, take this sport not that aggressively. Remember, when you come out of the water, the second discipline which you get into is cycling. How you cycle is derives of how your run is going to go in your triathlon. If you try to grind through, if you are not able to pace yourself good, the run is where you try to compensate. If you are a good, if you have a consistent pedaling stroke, if you have a good cadence, it's a good smooth ride, and that comes out into your run bit, right? Covering up more details as we progress. So to start with, there are a couple of terms I would want you to understand. The first thing is, of course, what is FTP? We keep talking about how the FTP builds up, how the power is being building up. So FTP, as the name says, it's functional threshold power. It's a very, I would say, an average number which we look out of your ride. So if you ride with a good strong effort for 20 minutes, we talk about that's your FTP. Okay, that means you can hold a good aggressive power for 20 minutes. That's as simple as it gets. Now, why is it important? Your 20 minutes cycling time purely helps your coach to plan your training. As we progress, as we build up your training plan, we keep the FTP as your pace or as your current existing, baseline. Um, it does not talk about anything how your race is. It just talks about what your current fitness level on the saddle is. It's a good measure for us to do it time and time again as we start building up our workouts, as we start building up our saddle time. We keep doing this in our training. which keeps on helping us understand that how my cycling fitness is improving. So today, for example, I could be at an FTP of 110 or let's say 150, whatever my FTP would be. Your coach would be driving your trainings based on this FTP. FTP has different zones, like the way we talk about our aerobic zones when we are doing our cardiovascular. The same way when we do our FTP, your zones are also derived from there. We talk about zone 1 to zone 5, where all your easy aerobic rides come at a 50% of FTP. So if your, let's say your FTP is about 200, so your aerobic ride would be in the zone of 100 to 110. That's roughly your aerobic ride. Then we talk about your zone 2 rides. So generally these are your long rides which you do outdoors on a Sunday, which you're expected to do. So that would be in the range of roughly about 60 to 70%. That's the zones we look at, or the percentage of FTP we look at. As we progress, zone 5 being your max effort would be on the FTP range. That's what we work on. There are a lot of athletes we work on above the FTP build also. So if let's say your FTP is 200, there are a few athletes we would do some VO2 max intervals also at a 220 to a 240, short, fast sprints. These are a part of your training program. So to make you understand what an FTP would be, a power which you can hold for 20 minutes, period. That's as simple as it gets. As we start building up, we will keep building up your FTP test. We'll keep improving that FTP. Yeah. Now, for you as a cyclist or a triathlete, it's a good benchmark to understand how your fitness is improving. It does not have any kind of relationship of how your race would be. Remember when we talk about FTP, we talked about for 20 minutes. Whereas when you go and ride in the race or you do in any kind of distance, whether it's Olympic or sprint or it is the 70.3, you ride at what we call as a sweet spot ride. As coaches, as a team, what we drive is that you as an athlete ride your 3 hour in a good 70 to 80% of your FTP. That's the kind of objective we want to build you up on. So if you are at a 200 FTP, I would look at you building up a consistent pace or a consistent power output of 150 to about 160, 65 range. That's the range which we look at. Plus minus, totally depending on the route, totally depending on the kind of road conditions we are looking at. But that's the ballpark figure we are looking at. Clear? Are we understand this FTP bit? Any questions here? I have Vishrut on the call. Vishrut, you had picked up a question a few weeks back in the group about FTP. Is the point clear?
I hear you, coach. It's clear to me.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody has any questions regarding the FTP? Great.
I have a question.
Yeah, Praveen, please go ahead.
I don't know if I'm amongst the very few who would be. Who's gone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I must be amongst the very few who may not be using a smart trainer, coach. So what could be an equivalent of an FTP with respect to the heart rate that I'm currently training?
So this is something which, I think you've been getting these workouts over the last few weeks now, where we don't talk about FTP with you, where we talk about your heart rate. Now that heart rate will be as based on your current cardiovascular training conditions. So what is your max right now in terms of your maximum threshold for your zone in terms of your cardiovascular? Would you have that number handy?
No. Are you saying like the zones that you're giving me to stick to?
Yes. So the heart rate zones I'm giving you, the 20 seconds and the short ones I'm giving you.
The 2-minute ones is what you're giving me currently. Like this morning I had one, which was 148 to 166.
So 148 to 166. So I'm looking at that would be somewhere around your 70 to 80% max. So I'm looking at your max will be anywhere about 166. So it will be anywhere in the range of 175 to 185. So you are right now optimizing it at about 80 to 85% of your heart rate zone is what we are working on. So to help you understand, your VO2 maxes right now, we again building up. Now, a lot of people might not have a smart trainer, so power and cadence is something which they will not be able to figure out. So your power can only be seen either you have a smart trainer or if you have an additional power meter on the cycle. So these are the two ways only you can look at the power. The other third way is what we look at the heart rate training or the effort, or what we say is the RPE, the rate of perceived exertion, means what is the kind of effort you're putting in. So if I'm asking you to put a sprint effort or a max effort on a scale of 1 to 10, your RPE would be 10, where it's a max. Where we talk about an aerobic ride, you would be in the zone of, from a scale of 1 to 10, would be at about 5 to 6. That's an aerobic ride. You would do a very easy, comfortable ride. And that's how we keep building it up. Yeah. So what you are doing most probably is your threshold maxes or your threshold ride at about 80 to 85%. That's what we're looking at. I can share a table after the call which can help you understand that when we talk about recovery rides or when we talk about long rides, what are the different heart rate zones we work on. So I can share that with you and the power zones also.
Thank you.
All right, great. Now, the other second thing which we're going to pick up after power or the important portion of indoor riding is your cadence. Now, what cadence is it? What does it mean? Cadence basically means what is how many revolutions you take per minute. That's your cadence. That's as simple as it gets. We talk about different numbers depending on what kind of cyclist you are. If you are a pure cyclist, we would look at you going in lower in cadence, but grinding it through. That means you're going to pull out more power. As a triathlete, a good number to settle in is anywhere between 80 to 90. The higher, the better. That means if you are riding a power at about 150, 160, your cadence could be in the range of 80 to 90, where it's a smooth ride. The difference between keeping your cadence high to low, if you're keeping your cadence too low, you're grinding. Grinding would mean you're putting a lot of load up on your quads and your hamstrings. Remember, after the ride, you have to run, so you can't overburn or overuse your legs. So you have to get into a sweet spot. 80 to 90 is a good ride where, yes, your heart rate tends to shoot up. But what we need to do is we need to build it up where you are building a lot of momentum. You're pushing and pulling, and you build up good momentum so that when you get off the saddle, the lactate threshold, the lactic acid formed in your legs is at a place where you can comfortably manage and get out and run after that. A lot of times you would do a brick workout after a long ride. You get off and you say, my legs are not moving. I'm not able to lift my knees up. So that's where you need to put a lot of attention on your cadence bit. Right? Prashant, any questions regarding this? This is something which we've been working on.
Yes, coach. Actually, what I have felt is I'm able to put power, but not cadence.
Yeah.
And my average power is above 150. My FTP 2 months back was 175. I have had the FTP test today.
Yeah.
I'm planning to do it tomorrow, which I'll
Okay.
discuss separately with you.
Yeah.
So I am not very comfortable with the cadence, but I'm comfortable with the power.
Yeah.
So, any suggestion or improvement thoughts on that?
See, when you start increasing the cadence, what's going to happen is you'll suddenly find that your heart rate is shooting up because we are trying to churn much faster. Now, all depends on how we are practicing, how we are building it up. Uh, you cannot convert your cadence overnight in terms of suddenly you decide from a 60 cadence you start riding at an 80 or 90. So what we need to do is we need to build in a lot of workouts. You, me, and Abhay can sit down and understand when Abhay is back how we can build up your cadence program also, where you can do some shorter intervals to build that cadence. Remember, you are coming from a running background, so you might find getting off the saddle and running much more comfortable. But as efficient triathlete, I would look at you building up on that cadence so you can easily save your legs and get a better speed. And also, when you're in Goa, when the weather is high, when your heart rate is high, your legs will take a lot of burn out of that. So we need to build that up. So tomorrow, what you can do is when you're doing your FTP test, don't just focus on power. Need to look at how you can increase your cadence by 5 to 10 RPM. So if you are in the range of 60, 65, don't shoot up to about 85, 90. Look at how you can maintain it to about 70 to 75. See how that feels. You will feel that the momentum is coming and you're going to feel much more comfortable riding it. Yeah. But of course, you need to then build up slowly and gradually, pace yourself accordingly.
No, I think that's a good suggestion. I think I need to get a computer, the bike computer,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm not really following it up. So that
Mm.
might really help.
Yeah.
But thanks. Mm.
So, however, you're training indoors, what happens is when you go outdoors, a lot of us don't have a power meter. So, what we do is we are totally riding outdoors in a blind spot. We just look at a couple of parameters, that is our speed. We look at the distance we are covering and the time we've spent. I don't think we look at anything else because I've seen a lot of riders doing this every time when they're riding because they will get the speed, they will get the time, and they will get the distance covered. So, an important tool if you want to build up this game, what I can recommend you is that invest in a good, strong power meter. So, whatever you're riding indoors in terms of your power, remember when you're riding on Zwift, the component which you look at is your power and your cadence. We don't look at speed. Speed is it's a gamification in Zwift where speed is a zero, understanding of how you're riding. What number you should look at is power. Now, when you take this ride outdoors, your speed is a total control in terms of how the power is, how the cadence is. Of course, the speed also has different parameters of how fast you're going based on the wind conditions, the gradient, the road quality, or anything to do with your bike. These are a lot of other components which get your speed out. The only two things which are in your control is your power and your cadence. That is something which you cannot see when you're riding outdoors. So a lot of times what we do as cyclists is that we train on a very, very specific number. Your coach builds up your program at whatever power is given. When we take this ride outdoors, the only thing we look at is how fast is the guy ahead of his riding. We forget about our power, we forget about our effort, we forget about our RP. The only thing which comes to our mind is that how fast the guy ahead of his riding, I will have to stay with him or I have to overtake him. So when we talk about training with some very, very specific numbers, your indoor rides is what's going to drive your outdoor rides, if you can see those numbers. Focus is pure power, focus is pure speed, and pure cadence, and looking at how your pedaling rate is. Now, when I say pedaling rate, what difference makes from the indoor and outdoor is, when you're riding outdoors, you are handling. That means you're looking at your bike handling skills. You are pedaling. Every time there is a downhill, we tend to stop pedaling. The bike will roll. If there is some traffic ahead, we'll slow down. If there's a turn, we'll move. But on the trainer, what happens is when you're sitting, you're constantly churning. It's very rare that you will be able to stop. So what you're doing is you're constantly improving your pedal stride. So you're working on a lot on your cadence. You're working a lot on your complete quality or efficiency of your cycling, right? So coming back, if you are riding indoors, if you have a good, strong, good smart trainer, and if you're looking at playing this game for a longer period, I would request you to see how you can invest in a good power meter so your quality rides also become, the rides also become with good quality and more efficient outdoors. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to switch off the mic for a couple of people. Yeah, all right, great. Any questions till now, anybody? Okay, I move on. Now, while we are working on doing the indoor rides, there are a lot of challenges which we face. I've heard a lot of people complaining of what are the problems we face in indoor rides. The first biggest problem which a lot of people come to me is saying that they get bored. A lot of my coaches also they kind of really hesitate in doing indoor rides. They would rather go do outdoor. But getting bored in an indoor ride is a very, very common problem all of us are going to face. Whether it is, you want to do that with listening to music, or you want to pick up a good movie, you want to do whatever you want to do, or binge watching, you can do that to distract yourself in terms of making your the ride more pleasurable. But remember, what you need to, along with it, do is that every time when you're riding indoors, there are a very specific program you get, the power you get, and the cadence you get. So please ensure that you're always focusing on those numbers. Your attention is there. You're totally dialed into the ride. It will take you some time. It will take you some effort. It's boring. I have done 4 hours to 5 hours indoors. I totally understand how boring it gets, but we need to stay dialed in. We need to ensure that we need to listen to how our body is responding to all the power outputs we're bringing in. So yes, music. I listen to a lot of music when I'm riding, but they are not in my ear. They're just playing in the background. I try not looking at a screen in terms of a movie or anything. It just distracts me. Me looking at the screen with the powers I'm riding is more efficient for me. But again, I would let you choose what your you know uh, the switch is to make sure that you stay dialed in into the ride. The second biggest problem which a lot of us face is chafing. When you're sitting on the saddle for long hours, outdoors you tend to move, you tend to move around. So yes, we do have that chafing as an issue, but we tend to move, so it kind of does not trouble us so much compared to when we do it indoors. Also, when you're sitting indoors, the effort is always either aero or upright. So invest in good gear, good cycling gear with good padding. That's a must do. Remember, whenever you are training, if you use substandard gear, you are bound to get, all these technical issues. A lot of times I hear keep training in the way I'll buy a easy sasta sa shorts and do it. I come from a thought process that yes, you can have that as a backup, but when you know that you're doing a good long 2 hours, 3 hours ride, invest in good gear so you do not go through the pain by wearing cheap clothes. Invest in some good clothes or good gear. The second thing which I very aggressively use is this. This is the chafing cream. There are different brands which are available. I personally use this. I've been using it for the last few years now. I got big boxes sitting at home. So yeah, I mean, you can use all this, which helps you, uh, take care of the chafing bit, the sweaty bit. The third important part is, when we ride indoors, what we tend to do is that we tend to keep a lot of our hydration, nutrition, everything in our reach. You know, what I want you to move away from that is that whenever you're riding indoors, get into good habits of if you're riding. A lot of times I hear, Coach, I cannot eat something because I can't balance the bike. I can't take my hand off and get the cycle off and drink. So what you need to start doing is that you need to get into the habit of loading up your bottles into your the old bottle holders. And when you're riding and when you want to sip water, whether you're indoors, I want you to bend down, take that bottle from the cycle holder, sip and keep it back. Once you start practicing that, you'll automatically feel that it's mechanical, that you're automatically going down. And when you're keeping it down, you don't lose that. Sometimes, when you're riding outdoors, you're trying to put the bottle back and you can't find where to put the bottle, and then you suddenly see, and then you lose the balance. So you need to have that mechanical thing. We tend to eat while we are doing our indoor rides. Do not make a fancy tray and start eating. Make it a habit where what you're doing is you are loading up your bike in terms of if you want to eat the gel, if you want to eat dates, you should wear your cycling jersey so that you get into the habit of putting your head back, taking out a gel, tearing it off, and eating it. These are good habits which you can build it up in your training. And when you build it up in your training and you go right outdoors, is how you're going to duplicate it. You can't think of picking up a gel from the tray, picking up and eating it, and then stopping and sitting up and eating. You can't do that outdoors. I don't see many people leaving both their hands and eating. I'm not in a personal favor of doing that. So you can't do that when you're riding indoors. So get into the habit of how you're going to eat, what you're going to eat outdoors on the ride, practice that indoors. And that's where your whole confidence will start building up. Yeah, right. Anybody else feels any challenges when they're doing their indoor rides? I can put these three together for me. Anybody else has any challenges?
Coach, I have two questions.
I wanted to ask about.
Sorry, who's this? Who's asking this question?
It was me, Vishnu.
Yeah, Vishnu, please tell me.
So the people spray, I've seen like people spray on the side, they stand up from their saddle. Is that advisable?
Sorry, I didn't understand that question. The voice is breaking.
sorry, I was asking like people sprint from their cycle, basically stand up from their saddle and they push through.
Okay.
Is that really advisable?
So when you cycle and when you stand up, what you do is you suddenly put in a lot of load on your quads. If you have a sudden acceleration which you need, you can do that. If you have a steep climb and you think you can do that, if you want to stand up off the saddle and do that. My personal thing, if you have not trained doing that in your training rides or in your indoor rides, I would prefer you to stay on the saddle, keep changing the gears, play with the gears. There are good 11, 12 gears at the back. There is two in the front. So keep playing with it. But if you are confident, like give you an example, I am confident in standing up and riding. I do that quite often on KMP when I want to take the lead, I want to move ahead because I do a lot of that workouts as a part of my program. But if you've not done it, what's going to happen is you might feel sudden acceleration, your heart rate will shoot up, and suddenly you'll find, oops, boom, your heart rate is going to stay up and your effort is going to go down. And to get that speed up, after that, you'll be really riding slow. So my personal suggestion to only do it if you've practiced it before.
Okay, got it. Another thing that I wanted to ask was if there's a really low power or basically if there is an incline, should we play with the gears in the front area?
Again, this totally depends on your training, how you've been training. I generally suggest my athletes to always train indoors. The front crank, there are generally two rings in the front crank. Most of us have it like that. Always train with the chain on the bigger crank. You only bring the chain to a smaller crank in the outdoor rides if you have some very steep climbs. Akshay, can you put your phone on mute, please?
Sorry, I'm trying, coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it done. Okay. So try to put your chain on the big crank always when you're riding indoors and outdoors also. Whenever you see a plane, a flat, always play with the back and not with the front. If you see a steep climb and you know that you will not be able to sustain that climb, that is when you can go to a smaller the front crank. But again, be very mindful of when do you change it. If you're climbing and in the middle of the climb you try to play around, you might damage your bike. So you'll be very, very careful in doing that. So if you know you're building up, slowly play with the gears one down at a time. Try not jumping more than one gear. I made that mistake a few months back, and when I broke my derailleur, where I brought two gears down suddenly, my chain got stuck and everything broke. So you can damage your bike. So make sure that you play around with that. So yeah, you do have a lot of indoor workouts on the Zwift as well. I'm sure when you work with Rachna, she'll be able to give you those free rides. So the difference between a free ride and the workout we would get is that, whenever you get a training plan, you would get a plan with all the powers. That powers do not, make a difference in what course you choose. So you can choose a 13% gradient or a flat course, doesn't matter. What happens in that is the only difference is your speed, your effort remains the same. All right. But if you do a free ride, if you're riding on a plane or a climb, the resistance automatically changes and gives you a real simulation of what you do outdoors on the road. So that's the difference between the workouts you get to the free ride what you do. So maybe Vishnu, you can work with Rachna and look at getting some free rides so you understand how the clients would be.
So coach, maybe
Okay,
pick
got
up
it.
ERG.
Yes, I'm coming to that
ERG
point
mode.
also. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it,
I
coach.
had
I
two
usually
questions.
use the bigger crank. Yeah, please
Use the
go ahead,
bigger
ma'am.
crank. Yeah. Yeah, Ashwin.
Okay, so one, heart rate going up, it's not necessarily that even when the power is constant, is that just me or is that normal? How do you control that?
See, when you start riding, what happens is, when you are starting to warm up, you will see a very small gradual increase in the heart rate, of course, because you start doing a lot of activity. Your muscles require more blood, more oxygen. So you'll see slowly your heart is working more. So you need to see your heart rate going. post a good 40-45 minutes, you suddenly find, and I'm sure all you guys who are cycling indoors or at the same time running also, post 40-45 minutes, you'll find there is a sudden jump, and then it just keeps going. You know, there are a couple of parameters attached to it. The first parameter is, of course, you're not hydrating enough. When you are sweating, you're losing a lot of water. And what happens is the viscosity of the blood increases. So that means your heart is doing extra work. Of course, your body temperature is going up. So you need to make sure that when you are training, if you are training for a race which is good 3-4 months away, you don't have to work on race simulation now. You don't have to switch off the AC and work and train in a hot environment because Goa is going to be hot. Right now, you can train the way you want to train for race simulation or looking at hot weather. We will go towards September, initial October, when we'll start doing some rides under the sun, where that that's the time period. So look at the temperature of the room where you're riding. Have a fan, get some fresh air coming all the time. So manage your body temperature. If nothing goes, just take some cold water, put it on your head. That will get your body, temperature cool down. Your heart rate will also comfortable. Check your nutrition. Are you eating enough? If you're not eating enough, you will find that your body is in the need of more food, and that is where your heart rate will also start churning up. Main parameters. Also, what you need to look at is the effort level we are looking at. Focus on your breathing. A lot of time when we start, increasing the effort, we try to focus on inhaling more, and that's where you need to start reversing it. Focus on exhaling. Anytime your heart rate goes up, it's very difficult to control. The only way you can control is by either bringing your body temperature down, hydrating, and looking at your breathing. That means I'm going to focus on exhaling. So when you exhale, what you're doing is you're putting less load on your heart. That means everything is going out, everything is contracted, so your heart gets small. It doesn't need a lot of energy, so heart rate goes down. Every time you inhale, your heart rate increases. So it's a reverse what a lot of us think. So let's now look at a couple of these factors and see if this helps you.
Yeah, the breathing has been helping me, so I am focusing on that.
Yeah. There's
That was my second question. Sorry.
Just interrupting. I don't know if anybody has seen this bit. I've been using it. It's called Aerofit. I picked it up from Kunal. It's a good tool if you guys want to work on your breathing. It's been helping me in terms of focus on getting my lungs stronger. Of course, I've had a couple of nose surgery, so I know I need to kind of do this regular. It also helped me, strengthen up my diaphragm. So over the last 2-3 months, a regular workout, it takes me 2 minutes every day. It's helped me, focus on my breathing quite a lot, and I can see the difference in my harder efforts. I can control it much better. So if you guys want to invest, you can always look at this tool. I think this one will not cost you about 6,000 or 7,000 rupees, but it's a good tool for one to look at.
Coach, can I take one question, please?
Yes, sir, please.
What is that tool, coach?
I'll send you the picture. It's called AeroFit. I'll send you the picture. I'll send you the details about it. It's a pretty decent one.
Yeah, good evening.
And you practice it. So, please.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So what I am looking for from this discussion with you, Jatin, is that what would be the 1 or 2 things which really decide how your FTP improves? So what are those 2-3 things that in your training which will really contribute to improving your FTP?
Great question, sir. Now, there are a couple of factors I would look at to point them out. I think how the buildup has been. Now, when you start driving at a specific, let's say FTP, where you are at a very easy effort, we need to start building up the program where it takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks from reaching from an effort of A to, let's say, B. Now, in that duration, what is the kind of effort you're building up in terms of the program you're getting? As we start building up into your rides, your cycling fitness improves. So that is something which is going to be a big parameter for you. The second thing is how your cadence is. That means how efficient as a cyclist you are. A lot of times our power starts building up, but we're not able to build up on our cadence. So though we can hold on to that power, but we cannot hold on to that power for a longer period because we're churning harder than what our legs can sustain. And that's where we see that suddenly there's a power drop. We start feeling the burn in our legs. So your program. Second thing will be your consistent work on your cadence. As we start building up, strength and conditioning plays a very essential role in building up your leg strength, which will in turn will help you build up your FTP. So these are three parameters. Along with it, I personally totally look at that the more outdoor rides you do, it gives you a lot of confidence in terms of building up that efficiency you're on the back on the trainer. So given an opportunity, try to build in at least 2 rides a month outdoors minimum. If you have the bandwidth in terms of if your schedule allows you to ride outdoors more, the more you will ride outdoors, you will suddenly find that when you come back and you sit on the trainer, you will find that the ride is much more efficient. You will find the confidence building up. And all these trainings, a lot is, yes, physical, but when you get the mental confidence of pushing, when you've done that on the road with a colleague or with a buddy, with an athlete, you will see that efforts come back on the trainer and you start doing that. So there's a lot of fitness which comes into place. So highlight 3 pointers for you, sir. Looking at the powers you're getting, see if you can sustain those powers in the training. That's where the progressive overload is, where we keep building it up. Second thing, keep working on your cadence. That's an area I think we've been working on for a while now. So we need to keep building up, cadence. The third thing is you need to go on outdoor rides. We need to build that efficiency in the outdoor rides. And over about 8 weeks, you will see some build-up happening in your team.
Thank you.
Yeah. President, you have a second question?
Yeah, related to aero bars. So
I know there are more people
well,
in this forum
yeah,
who want
well,
to be picking up aerobars.
well, that was not the question. Okay, so I'll ask the question which everyone else wants to ask, but that's not my question.
Yeah.
I know everyone asks aero bars on a road bike, so that you can answer. But my question is, when I get down on my aero bars, I feel my power decreases, and that is probably also a bike fit issue. But is that also a normal thing? Is it to do with not pulling or pushing, or what is it?
Okay. So I'll look at this thing from a couple of point of views. Now, first thing, I know this is a burning question. A lot of people do ask me, do I put aero bars on a road bike? Okay. Of course, tri bikes, TT bikes all have aero bars for a purpose, because the frame comes in a way where you can go down and you can hold that position. Different people will give different point of view. So my point of view, if the aero bars are supposed to be on a road bike, the company would sell it fitted. They don't. Purely for the reason because the road bikes are meant to be on the hood or drop down. Now, we are not talking about ultra distances or doing the 150s or 200s. We are a 90-kilometer, half Ironman, where a 3-hour ride can be very well done because the geometry of the bike is made like that. Yes, you can put in aero bars. Yes, you can ride with aero bars. It's absolutely okay. There is nothing wrong with it. It's just that the safety point of view and it's compromised, what I feel, because you're here only and the braking and gearing is here, unlike a TT bike where your gearing is here, you can easily change. So, but again, it's your personal choice. So do work with your coach. Now, sitting upright. Now remember, when you sit upright, your hip angle is more muted and you're pedaling. But when you get into the aero position, your hip opens up. Hip opening up means that you generate more power. So if you're going into an aero position, your power should increase. On the contrary, your power is reducing. Different reasons for that. Now, when you're going upright to an aero bar position, you will find with the same effort, you will have at least 3 to 5% of gain in your speed, purely because you are providing a lot of resistance, and now you run down, you become narrow, and the wind goes over. So there is much better, speed is what you're generating. In our case, why my understanding is we're not able to get it is it's not a bike fit issue. We already got the bike fit done. So that is something which, we can get it done again if you're not still comfortable and confident with it. But what we need to do is when we start getting into an aero position, what we do is we become a little lazy in terms of going down, and we are not engaging our core. Try holding on to your aero bars tight, engage that core the way we hold a front climb position, hold it, and then start churning. Yes, there will be a little push you have to do. You have to get into, when you do your indoor ride, you need to get into that aero position, hold on to the bar, and then ride, and then see what is happening. So again, I always use this term is what you do in your training is how you go race. So if you're doing your indoor rides, maybe you want to get onto those bars, hold them tight, engage your core, and then churn out some power. Initially, you will find some effort getting more, I mean, in terms of you're burning more. But once you get into that consistency of pedaling, if you start playing around with your cadence, you will find that the power generation is much, much better. Yeah. If you want, Rasna, we can do a ride together, an indoor ride also, and we can see how it works out for you. You've done that earlier, so we can do that again if you want. Are you there?
Thank you.
Great. Guys, any other questions regarding the issues you're facing in the indoor rides? Because I have another topic which I want to cover up.
Coach, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
I find that like outdoors, I feel like I sweat maybe 1/10 as I do indoors. Whether I have the AC on, if I have a fan on, I just feel like it gets so hot in the room and you sweat so much and there's nothing to like get rid of the sweat. Compared to outside, if you're going at 25 to 30 kilometers an hour, there's so much air just wiping away the sweat.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I sweat more. I just think that like, how do you set, like, I'd like to know, how do you set up your fans? How do you set up so that that airflow is coming to keep you cool?
So earlier, what I did was I had a tall fan which I would always keep it on top of in front of my face. I don't have that anymore. So I simply now just have the ceiling fan and I have my AC. I try to switch it on. It's roughly when I'm doing longer rides, I just kind of, yeah, the Frata fan, Priyanka, that's exactly the word I was looking for. So just have these small fans, yeah, these table fans. You can put it right on your face and let the breeze just cool you down. That's the best you can do. Make sure you cover your bike with a towel, please. I don't want your sweat to get into the detailed components of your new bike. I love your bike. So just make sure you keep it safe like that. Yeah, so just get the AC on, man. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're anyways racing in a cold weather. AC would have been good for you. All right, great. Any questions regarding your any challenges? We've covered boredom, chafing, the good habits. We picked up the powers, the sweat issue. Anything else?
Coach, I have one question on FTP.
Yes, Alec.
So, see, in running, like there is a school of thought that if you run slow, right, that helps you run fast, right? That you do training in zone 2 and that actually helps you build stamina and you can even go faster. Is that something which is applicable here also? Like if you are
Absolutely.
at FTP of 200 and you train for at 100 only, like for 2-3 hours and just keep it easy in zone 2, does that help also in increasing the FTP?
Alec, I'll answer in a simple way. The engine is only one, that's you. And your engine, your cardiovascular system is just one. You don't have a different cardiovascular for running, different for cycling, different for running. So the principles remain the same. For us, what we need to build up is that we need to start building up our aerobic zones. Now, like I said, your aerobic zones are anywhere from your 50, 55 of your max heart rate to about 60, 65. Majority of your training, 70 to 80% of your training always happens in aerobic zones. You will be looking at doing some harder intervals also, but that harder intervals, the VO2 maxes or the race power what you're going to be driving is just the 20% of the whole training calendar if I drive or if I draw. If let's say you're training for 6 months with us, those hard, crazy intervals will not be more than 8 weeks. It'll be a gradual build up. We're not going to be building up on the same aerobic. We're not going to be looking at 110 all the time. Yes, you're going to be building up 110. You will start building up your aerobic base. I mean, I'll give you an example of a triangle. Your base of a triangle is the biggest. That's your aerobic base. You keep piling up Lego toys on top of it, where once you build up your aerobic base, whether it's cycling, whether it's running, whether it's swimming, you keep building up the engine and you start building up your zone 1, zone 2. What we've not able to do that is that as soon as we start pushing up, because we have a lot of other components we work on in terms of our stress, hydration, nutrition, sleep, recovery, our zone 2 suddenly jumps to zone 4, whether it's running, whether it's cycling. So that's why when you get a plan to go easy, go easy. If a very big thumb rule for our training, for all endurance training is, after every workout, if you start feeling the burn or if you feel like you've put a crazy effort in that workout, your training is not going right. There are sessions which are meant to kill you, but there are sessions which are also meant to build your confidence where you do those aerobic rides. That's why you get instructions saying, keep it easy. So keep it easy. Every day is not about building up. So yeah, if you are building up your FTP, you need to build your trying the base stronger. That's your aerobic base. So your strong, easy rides, your outdoor long rides are meant to be in that easy heart rate sometimes. That's why when we started the call, when I said, that when you're riding outdoors, our objective in that ride is not to go easy. Our objective is to kill ourselves. So yeah, you need to look at doing those easy rides, and it will certainly help you build up your FTP. But what happens is the journey becomes longer. If you start doing a lot of your hard efforts, what you are achieving with your aerobic training in 3 months, you might achieve it with your hard efforts in maybe 1 month. But what you're also doing at the same time is you are exposing yourself to a lot of stress. You're exposing yourself to a lot of high intensity work, which exposes you to higher risk of injury. Yeah. So it's all correlation. And that's why we say go easy, build it up, and then you'll see that your FTP is also, your thresholds are also getting better. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Alec?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Coach, I have a question. So I understand that the FTP is needed to define our power zones for more efficient workouts.
Yes.
And what about lactate threshold? Like, do we as athletes, maybe at this level in our trainings, need to test that as well? And how different is it from FTP? And should we be even looking at it? Because recently,
FTP and lactate are two different things. So
yeah.
FTP and lactate can never be correlated in terms of your lactate readings cannot be derived unless a blood sample is taken. So you're from a medical background, you can help us to understand better. Unfortunately, there are not many places where you get these tests easily available. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
I think there is only one, I think in Bangalore and Chennai, where you send your samples and it's a process of 2 weeks where they send the numbers back to you.
There are some kits available, yeah, but my question is, should we test it for ourselves? Is it necessary in training?
Nothing is necessary here. There's nothing is necessary. It's the personal choice. If you wish to do that, you can do that. You can do a test. But an FTP at this point in time, at the juncture of as a club and the athletes we are at the level we are, I think for us to just build up on a basic FTP course, understanding your heart rate zones, these are good enough. Getting data out and getting more information sometimes is great, but unless you can drive sensible pointers out of that data, it might backfire. So I would say majority of people over here are new to triathlons, new to cycling, so we can wait on that. But if you have the details of the kit, maybe you can share it with me. I can put it in the group for people to do that.
Okay, I'll check. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, Piyush, I agree. Yeah, that's the same thing which Priyanka, there is a print kit which you can put in and get the numbers out. Ayush, please, please ask for your question.
Yeah, hi, Jatin. Just wanted to check that an easy ride on the saddle typically is a lower heart rate than an easy run. Are we looking at kind of the aerobic zone heart rates should they be equal on a saddle and a run?
Ideally, they should be the same. But what happens is they will generally be slightly more, the cycling will be slightly lower than your runs, purely depending on the effort you're putting in to do a movement. So when you're running, there's a lot of impact, there's a lot of body movement, so your heart rate will shoot up. There's more usage of the muscles compared to cycling. It's a low impact sport. So yes, the heart rate zones will be different. Ideally, they should be the same if you are a very well trained athlete. But for us, the way we are right now, the way we are building up, it would vary a little. Your running heart rates will always be in a good higher zones compared to your cycling zones.
Yeah, that's how it turns out.
Yeah, it'll be like that. Yeah.
No.
Ganesh, hi, I didn't know you were here.
Hi, coach. So in the last ride, I realized that I sweat a lot from my face, and even though I wear a bandana, a lot of my sweat gets accumulated on the inside of my goggles. So after maybe the first 45 minutes, 1 hour, my goggles are useless. So they become too cloudy with all my sweat, so I have to put them back in.
In the outer rides?
In the outdoor ride, yeah. So is there
Yeah.
should I wear a skull cap or should I wear something else because the bandana is not working for me?
You can try it. Honestly, I've tried a skull cap because my tendency of sweating is also quite high. I haven't been able to successfully use the skull cap. So what I generally do is I would just generally wipe it off and I would just try to play around with it. I don't know if you face that same issue or not. Generally, my sweat goes into my eyes and it burns. So I have got into the habit of just lifting it up and wiping it. What I did in the middle was I started wearing gloves. So gloves have a little portion which you can wipe it off because sometimes when you eat, you have some residue left of gel or salt and all, and you can't put that in your eye by mistake. So I started using the glove, but I'm not using it still because it takes time to wear it in the transition. I'm trying to use it. So my suggestion is try the skull cap, see if it works. If anything else you want to try is what I've started doing. I keep a water bottle always at the back, take it out, and I put some water on my face. It just helps to cool my face. I mean, clean my face, cool the sweat off, and then I keep riding. So.
Yeah, actually, the problem is not that the sweat goes in the eye. I'm okay with that. The problem is that the sweat gets accumulated inside the goggle. So after some time, it just gets cloudy once the air starts getting in.
Yeah.
So I can't
Anybody
see
else
anything.
facing this issue? Especially people wearing specs, they have to wear it. The sunglasses.
And get goggles with wipers on them.
On the inside.
Yeah, on the inside. Find them.
So can
I get this occasionally.
Open shape.
Sorry?
Yeah, the regular Oakleys.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got a big collection of Oakleys, huh? So
I've tried all of them. All of them have the same issue.
I can just recommend you to just try the cycling cap, see if it works. But if you have a tendency of sweating a lot, then it'll be. Yeah, I'm sure. You're racing in cold weather now, so you don't have to give him that one.
You can get your face Botoxed.
She's selling her business. Okay, get back, guys.
Coach, on that point, sorry, I had a small question.
Yeah.
Which is regarding, since you mentioned the gloves, right? Now, given Goa weather and all, I mean, gloves in the transition actually takes a lot of time, right? But given the weather, and if you're sweating and all the sweat is going to your hands and it is then going on the handle and it makes the handle tough to hold, then it becomes a big problem. So in fact, that's what I tried at HR26 also using the gloves, but it takes time, maybe around a minute or 30 seconds to a minute just to get the gloves on. So what do you recommend, especially keeping Goa in mind?
See, I'll give you my experience of using gloves earlier. I've done hot weather races also where I've worn gloves. It helps for the same reason where you can wipe it off. Yes, it will take 30 seconds to a minute extra. There are ways where you can cut down the time also. Rather than leaving the gloves open, you can fold them so you quickly wear them. If you have a tendency of sweating excessively, and if you feel in your trainings that the handle gets slippery, it's better to spend that 30 seconds to a minute in transition than to risk your 90 kilometers ride with sweaty palms with a fear that you might fall on the turn. So, we have to then weigh the consequences of will that 1 minute cost me more, or if by any mistake I fall, will that going to create more problem for me? So take a call. I would say practice accordingly. If you think you don't want to waste that 1 minute, then start training without your gloves. See how you feel. Build in that confidence of riding with sweaty hands. For example, this 15th August, I was riding most of the time upright. I got sweaty. My cycle handle was very, very sweaty because I have a tendency of sweating. But in aero, it doesn't matter to me because I don't need to. So I was feeling very scared. The Sunday when I rode, I was in aero, everything was fine. So, but again, it's about your comfort. So if you think you want to not waste that 1 minute, it's up to you. So my personal suggestion, wear gloves. Good quality, but make sure don't compromise on the quality of gloves. Castelli gloves are the best. I wear a Castelli one and I love them. Half gloves, they're very nice. They're very comfortable.
I think, coach, wristband can also help.
Absolutely. It's a personal choice. Wristband, again, you would have to wear the wristband. I've seen you wearing it. So yeah, one can always wear wristbands. Yeah,
Yeah, I use both of them, wristbands and gloves, so that it is just, you don't get into the slippery situation. Yeah.
But now you won't need gloves also. Yeah, you have an aero bike. You will be flying on the TT position, so you'll be fine.
Let's hope so. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Neeru, please, your question.
कोच ERG मोड थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट हो रहा है.
हाँ, मैं वही समझा रहा हूँ. That was the topic I wanted to cover. Okay, ERG mode. It's a very, very simple thing. It's an erg mode. When you are riding, when the erg mode is off, okay, what happens is your power and your cadence is in your control, and you are changing the gears based on the power you want to generate. Now, if you get the ERG mode on, it is a great tool for us to keep that effort high. Means you don't have to change the gear. The only thing you have to focus on is that you have to maintain the cadence. The system will automatically play around the resistance of the trainer depending on what your power is. तो नीरू, अगर आपको पावर 110 निकालनी है, आप अगर ERG मोड ऑफ कर देंगे तो आप गियर को बार बार चेंज करेंगे. जो पीछे वाली चेन है, आप उसको जितना छोटे पे लेते जाएंगे वो और पावर निकालेगा आपकी. करेक्ट?
यस.
अगर आप उस ERG मोड को ऑन कर देंगे तो आपको गियर को कुछ छेड़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. आप सबसे छोटी गियर पे भी चला सकती हैं, सबसे बड़ी गियर पे भी चला सकती हैं. आपका जो ट्रेनर होगा वो ऑटोमेटिकली वो आपकी पावर को चेंज करेगा डिपेंडिंग ऑन आप क्या केडेंस निकालती हैं. आपकी अगर केडेंस हाई रहेगी तो वो रेजिस्टेंस कम करता हुआ चलेगा क्योंकि आपकी पावर निकलेगी ज्यादा. लेकिन अगर आप अपना केडेंस को कम कर दोगे तो वो पावर आपको लगेगा कि मेरे को और पुश करना है, बिकॉज आप केडेंस कम कर दी है लेकिन आपको पावर तो निकालनी है. ये वही मतलब है जो मैं आपको पहले बोल रहा था कि या आप ग्राइंड करते हैं या आप उसको स्वीट स्पॉट पे रखते हैं. तो आपकी मैंने आई थिंक आजकल मैंने राइड आपको ERG मोड पे इसलिए दे रखी है क्योंकि मैं आपकी केडेंस पे थोड़ा बिल्ड करना चाहता हूँ. यस, तो उसमें ये फर्क रहेगा. दो जगह ERG मोड हमारा काम आता है. पहले होता है कि अगर हमें किसी की केडेंस पे काम करना है, वहां मदद करता है. दूसरा होता है कि अगर हमको अपना एक एफर्ट स्ट्रॉन्ग रखना है, उसको जैसे अगर 150 160 में हमें कंसिस्टेंट रखना है, हमें उसको कुछ नहीं करना, लंबी राइड है, 1 घंटे की राइड है, हमको सिर्फ राइड करना है, तो हम ERG मोड ऑन करके सिर्फ एफर्ट निकालेंगे. वी जस्ट फोकस ऑन द एफर्ट. सो दीस आर द टू प्लेसेस द ERG मोड रियली हेल्प्स.
मेनली अभी तक ये हुआ कि पावर तो आ रही है बट केडेंस नहीं आ रही थी उसमें.
हाँ, और हमको वही केडेंस पे फोकस करना है. तो आपकी राइड अब ऑटोमेटिकली केडेंस पे ध्यान देना है. अब आप खुद केडेंस निकालोगे अगर आपको अपनी राइड को इजी करना है. वरना आप जितना केडेंस को स्लो करोगे वो आपको एफर्ट और डालने को बोलेगा.
ओके ओके, ठीक है, थैंक यू.
Anybody else using ERG mode? Any thoughts on ERG mode? Anybody?
I only use ERG mode.
Yeah, man. I started using it for the first time in last month. I feel miserably because I found it didn't go with my riding style. I keep playing with the gears.
So I find that, for example, if I'm outdoors and I'm riding at say 150 watts,
yeah,
on the same gear in ERG mode, just because of the weight of the flywheel,
yeah,
I'll be at 200 or 250 watts.
Yeah.
In this, so the power I need is much higher, and therefore, unless I'm in small ring with small gear, I can't do 20%, 50% of my power.
Yeah, but I think your cadence has always been on a higher side, so I think that kind of really brings it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could be.
Great. Super.
On
the
coach,
Sorry.
1 second. On the ERG mode, when it's on and we have those short 10-20 second bursts of the anaerobic efforts, then there is an issue I always face on that on my trainer, because not able to hit that number because there is a little lag that happens
Yeah.
in jumping power. So then I feel that is probably the limitation where what I face is when the mode is on.
Yeah. I agree. It sometimes backfires because there
Yeah.
will always be a 3 to 5 seconds lag. Because what happens is when you switch short intervals, the trainer also takes time to adjust the power. So by the
Yeah.
time it adjusts the power, your peak has already reached and you're on the downhill.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll always feel there is a lag, and that's where I keep saying that try playing around with the gears and see that how you can churn out the power. It's real
So
response.
for
Yeah.
2 sessions, it kept happening like that. From 80 to 250, it was just not happening. In the third session, what I did is when those intervals were coming in, I put it off.
Okay. Yeah.
I turned it off, and it worked out fine then.
Yeah. You can
We
always
can
do
and
that.
we can put it off in the middle of the ride as well.
Yes. Yes, you can. Yeah. Ninu, you still have a question? I see your hand up.
No, coach. Okay.
Achha,
Thank you.
okay, fine. Guys,
I
anybody
have a
else?
very, yeah, sorry, a very maybe a silly question, but this ERG mode sometimes it shows in Zwift, sometimes it doesn't show in the bottom bars. Yeah, you have all those bars where you can take a coffee break and all of other things, but कभी दिखता है कभी नहीं दिखता है. In settings भी कहीं दिखता नहीं है. So is there a way to get to off and on the ERG mode in Zwift?
Alec, it depends on what kind of ride you're doing. So if you are doing a free ride, you will not have an ERG mode on. If you have a ride which your coach has given you the power bars of what power for how much time, if he's built a program in Training Peaks which is gone to Zwift, then you can switch on the ERG mode. But if you're, let's say, there is no coach plan and you're just going into some world and riding free, then there will never be an ERG mode. And did you notice that?
I do those sometimes those rides which are those fixed rides like 1.4 or 1.6 watts per kg. But I'm not sure. I think maybe sometimes I've seen, but sometimes I've not seen ERG mode
Alec,
coming in those rides.
Alec, that's a free ride only.
Yeah, that's a free ride.
That's just a pace group with free riding.
Yes, that's what exactly we are. So जो आप 1.6 वाली बोल रहे हो वो races होती हैं जो आप कर रहे हो. You can pick up a time and race, right? That's what you're saying?
I pick up a 1.6 watts so that you have to keep pace with the robo pacer and everybody moves at that pace.
Yeah. That's a free ride. So your ERG mode only comes when your coach builds a program and gives it to you.
Okay.
Also, Ali, maybe you can you can update the Zwift ones. I was facing that issue. I updated it and it's showing up now.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
All right. I think we've already been an hour in. Guys, if you still have any questions, keep letting them in. They can put a message to me. I'll be covering a lot of questions in the coming few weeks. So today's pointer was purely built up on the questions which a few people asked me about FTP, indoor ride, what are the issues they're facing. So if you still have any questions regarding your training program or depending on how your build is, please shoot them into me. We can always incorporate them into the calls. But thank you very much for your time. I hope you are making use of these calls and they're helpful for you. I look forward to see you training together. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank